Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a massive, frankly historic economic collision happening right in front of us. We are looking at the intense friction between traditional, human-driven ride-sharing and the relentless, approaching wave of autonomous vehicles. It's a fascinating battle of business models, and by the end of this, you're going to see exactly why the entire transportation landscape is on the verge of a total rewrite. To get a real sense of the stakes right off the bat, get this. The incumbent is already playing defense. According to our source material, Uber is actively lobbying local governments in places like New Jersey to artificially slow down the rollout of self-driving cars. When a massive market leader starts asking regulators to tap the brakes on a new technology, well, it's a loud, clear signal that a major disruption is right at their doorstep. So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at Uber's current human labor model, then the arrival of the machine driver, the brutal math behind the cost per mile, how this inevitably squeezes out human drivers, and finally, how this whole shift expands the transportation pie. All right, part one, Uber's human labor model and the inherent fragility of the status quo. To understand why the current giant is vulnerable, you gotta look at the core conflict here. Uber's whole model relies on a totally volatile human marketplace. I mean, they don't even own the cars. They constantly have to convince human beings to supply their own vehicles and their own time. It's why they use surge pricing, to practically lure drivers out when demand spikes. Plus, they're always battling driver fatigue and wage demands. But the disruptor's approach? It's radically different. You just manufacture relentless physical AI. You built a car that drives itself, giving you continuous labor with zero wages, available 24/7. And just to put the sheer scale of this into perspective, $190 billion. That is the massive amount of annual fares and fees passing through Uber's network right now. But here's the catch. Almost all of that massive revenue pipeline relies entirely on coaxing roughly 1 million active U.S. drivers to actually get in their cars every single day. It is a massive empire, absolutely, but it's built entirely on the daily willingness of humans to drive. Which brings us to part two. Enter the machine driver, our new reality. And look, this isn't some distant science fiction anymore. This is a physical reality accelerating in major cities as we speak. Waymo was already scaling to hundreds of thousands of paid autonomous trips, even before 2025. And the timeline is getting crazy aggressive. By June 2025, Tesla's supervised Robotaxi goes live in Austin. Fast forward just a bit to early 2026, those rides go unsupervised in Austin, and then rapidly expand to Dallas, Houston, and Miami by mid-year. The machine driver isn't just coming, it is literally already here, and spreading fast. What's really fascinating about this, and maybe a bit mind-bending, is how it totally redefines artificial intelligence. We're also used to talking about chatbots on our screens, right? But a self-driving car is completely different. It's AI as continuous physical work. You are building labor directly into a machine at a factory, and then you just run it for hours and hours without ever paying an hourly wage. You manufacture the labor once, instead of having to recruit it every single day. So let's get into part three, the brutal cost per mile, or really the math of disruption. The economic gap between these two models is, frankly, devastating. Right now, an average Uber costs north of $2.80 per mile. Why? Because you're paying for a human's time, their energy, and the daily hassle of letting complete strangers into their personal car. But the target for a fully scaled robotaxi system, we're talking 20 to 40 cents a mile. When you completely drop the human wage from the equation, when a machine works without needing a paycheck to justify showing up, the pricing floor absolutely collapses. And that massive economic shift leads us to this kind of unbelievable number, 200,000. Now, our sources point out that roughly 7 in 10 Uber drivers only work part-time, like 20 to 23 hours a week. So 1 million human drivers doesn't actually mean 1 million cars are on the road all day. Because a robotaxi can easily work 12 to 16 hours a day every single day, an autonomous fleet only needs to manufacture roughly 200,000 of these hardworking cars to completely replace the online hours of 1 million part-time human drivers. Suddenly, this becomes a very solvable manufacturing problem, rather than an endless human resources nightmare.
So let's take a look at where the money actually goes today. Uber essentially survives by being a giant middleman. Out of your total fare, Uber takes a massive bite, roughly 30%, right off the top, just for matching you with a car. The other 70% goes to the driver and their costs. Uber doesn't own the car. They don't drive it. They literally just own the marketplace.
And honestly, that setup creates an existential threat for them. Under Uber's fractured model, the human owns the vehicle and does the driving, while Uber just provides the app. But Tesla's target model? They own the entire chain. They own the car, the AI labor, and the booking app. By bypassing the middleman completely, they keep 100% of the fare. Think about it. There is absolutely zero reason for Tesla to put the robotaxis on the Uber network if they can just connect directly to you and keep that 30% cut for themselves. Now for part 4, squeezing out human drivers, the death spiral. This creates a brutal, unavoidable trap for the incumbent apps. It goes like this. Step 1, cheaper machine miles undercut the standard price. Step 2, to stop riders from jumping ship to the cheaper robotaxis, the traditional app is forced to drop its fares. Step 3, and this is where it really hurts. Lower fares mean human drivers take home less money for the exact same amount of work, so they just log off and quit. And finally, step 4, with fewer human drivers on the road, wait times for riders start climbing. It's a classic rock and a hard place scenario. Keep prices high, machines steal your riders. Slash prices, your human workforce walks away. It's a lot like a grocery store that installs self-checkout lanes and fires its cashiers way too early. Before the machines can actually handle the busy hours, you just end up with massive, super frustrating lines. That exact same risk applies to a mixed rideshare fleet. If an app tries to mix robotaxis and human drivers, the machines are going to grab the easy, clean, back-to-back trips. Human drivers are left fighting over the messy, challenging, less profitable leftovers. If that human workforce feels squeezed and quits prematurely before the machine fleet is fully scaled, the quality of the entire network just tanks. The absolute most critical thing to understand here is what breaks when those drivers quit. It's a concept called local density. This is the absolute lifeblood of a rideshare network. It's that magic feeling when you open your app on a rainy Friday night and a car is somehow only 3 minutes away. But the moment human drivers log off because the math just doesn't work for them anymore, that local density completely evaporates. Wait times stretch out, the app loses its core convenience, and that powerful growth loop that built Uber in the first place, it starts running in reverse. Which brings us to our final section, part 5, expanding the pie and the future of transport. Because here's the thing, when the cost of a mile plummets to just 20 or 30 cents, human behavior is going to fundamentally change. Think about older folks who can no longer drive themselves, suddenly gaining incredibly cheap mobility, or households doing the math and realizing they can completely drop the massive expense of a second car. People will start taking rides for trips they used to just skip, simply because it wasn't worth the cost or the absolute nightmare of parking at the airport. Our sources compare this to the invention of container shipping. When standardized containers drastically lowered transport costs, it didn't just shift existing freight around, it created massive new volume and revolutionized global trade. In the exact same way, manufacturing incredibly cheap machine miles is going to create millions of brand new trips that just didn't make economic sense before. So we've seen how manufacturing labor totally rewrites the math, how it breaks the old network effects, and how it could massively grow the total market. And that leaves us with one massive structural question to ponder. When the driver is built directly into a factory-made car and the cost of operation hits rock bottom, does the rideshare middleman simply go extinct? Definitely something to think about the next time you pull out your phone and decide which app to open for a ride. Thanks for tuning into this explainer, and keep your eyes on the road ahead.